Hello and welcome. I am here today with a person I am pretty utterly fascinated with these days. Please welcome Kanchana Moodliar, who I met through the Mind Matters Summit, which was held in Cape Town just about a month ago, just less than a month ago. So welcome. I really appreciate you joining me here and having a
Thanks
little
so much,
chat about what
Christa.
you've done and what you're up to and what's coming. So
Thanks so much for having me, Christa. Lovely to be here.
you are very welcome, always. Um, Tell me, I like to let people introduce themselves because I know sometimes I get introduced in ways that make my head do this. So, how do you introduce yourself to people? Who are you?
Um, so I'm Kanchana Moodliar. It's quite interesting because up until probably not even 9 months ago, I was not the title that I am now because Mind Matters only came to fruition 9 months ago, from 9 months. So I am Kanchana Moodliar, the CEO and founder of Mind Matters Summit. And I am deeply interested in the questions of what makes a good life and what allows us to live that good life here on earth.
Those are very good questions and ones I share on a daily basis and very much aligned with what we're doing here with Odyssey. So I'm delighted to see the different ways we can support both organizations going forward. Um, Tell me what we're using the new tagline for Odyssey that we're unveiling in a month is exploring consciousness. What does that mean to you? What does that look like?
It's such a big topic, right? So I think this is the question that is consuming humans more so now than ever before. There's an awakening and a aliveness about the conversation, and I think um, we're becoming more aware that we are aware, you know, and consciousness is something that lives within us and outside us. And I think for me, it's always been a journey within to find out what's actually in there. What am I made of? What is possible? And then trying to understand it from a global perspective of what are the scientific thoughts behind this? What are the ancient wisdom thoughts behind this? And how do the two marry each other? And I must say that there's no single answer, but there's an answer for you. And I think that's exploring consciousness is about exploring the reason you are here for the experience of life and why are you here. And
I love
being
that.
aware of the fact that you are aware is fundamentally what consciousness to me is.
Yes, yes. I think that being aware of what you're not aware of, it's good to know what you don't know. And I think it's exciting too. It gives you a reason to get up in the morning and to kind of explore the world. I think at this point in time, it is so many different factions, professions, lines of thought, whatever you want to call them, science, are trying to explain what's really inexplicable. And they're just different words, all for the same thing, which is worthless. But isn't it fun to kind of play with the words and the images and the ideas? Um, and I think that well, no, I won't say I think. The way I experienced the Mind Matters Summit was just this wonderful kind of cornucopia of different ways to look at things. And I want to appreciate everything that you and your team did to make that happen. It was stunning on so many levels.
That's a wonderful compliment. I think it's quite interesting how it's been a month, not yet. In 2 days will be a month since we had Mind Matters. And the number of messages and texts and DMs I'm getting, honestly, in the last 2 weeks, and I think when I met you as well, has been profoundly moving for me. That the work actually meant something to so many people. And not on a I was inspired level, on a I'm taking action in my life. I've just changed a thought. I yesterday was doing this thing and I realized that I learned that at Mind Matters and I've now put it into action. I've booked a course of training with Kevin from Dream Fuel. I've, already done my second ice plunge. I mean, things that I put into motion as a catalyst. And all I wanted to do is get more people on the journey, because I know that once you're on the journey, it's very hard to go back to who you were. It's almost like when an elastic band stretches, it can't go back to its original form. So a lot of people's elastic bands were stretched to a new realm. And I think because it was so emotional, everybody in the room actually raised that energy and everybody started moving in that direction of this new conversation of the fact that I am in control of my life. I have the power within me.
And that's like, I just want to underscore that and put it in a box and highlight it. I we sometimes refer to this as waking up. The elastic band, I look at it as, when you buy things and you order something from Amazon or Takealot in the packaging, and then if you need to return it and you try to put it back in the
That never fits, yeah.
And that day, those 2 days or day and a half, it was like, as an observer, for a good part of the time, I just kind of sat back and watched, because I felt like I was, and I'm quite well traveled. I've been to a number of events. It's not like this was my first rodeo. But I felt like I was sitting back and watching just magic happen. And so the packaging popping, or popcorn, how you watch popcorn forever if you do it in a pan the old school way, and nothing happens and nothing happens and nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, one, and then another, and then blah blah blah. I want to I know I told you this in person, but for the sake of this interview and to explain the experience to people, day one was, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, a fairly seated, mostly brain-based, some somatic experience in an auditorium, in a hall. And then day two was much more experiential. The morning of day two, and not everyone chose, but most people chose to do that. It was an add-on. And as we stood in the lobby, everyone getting ready, and there were two big groups, half the group was in this particular building. All we could do barely was greet each other. Everyone was so full and so sort of changed, out of the packaging, that there was a great deal of, are you feeling like still trying to process things? How are you? And we just sort of milled around and smiled at each other. There was this wonderful camaraderie and this wonderful just sort of sense of love, to be cliche, because in light, and to see it embodied and in person. I'm so glad that you're hearing this from so many people. I too, a lot of people are saying, okay, I've tried this meditation. Tell me about this kind of meditation. I'm hearing the same things from people I make contact with there. It really was a catalyst. So let me ask you this. What in your life was the catalyst for you? What woke you up? Was there one thing? Was it a big thing or just a gradual thing for you? Because I think it varies for all of us.
So I think it was one thing at the very beginning. So when I was 23, I had a near-death experience. I was thrown out of a car. And there was no way, I mean, there's someone who witnessed this, who was a nurse who was right behind our car, who said, there's no way anybody is going to survive this. So I basically flew out of a door of a moving car, and I hit a wall. And all that happened was I broke a few toes, cracked my head a little bit, a couple of teeth, not what should have happened, consider when you looked at the car and when you looked at what should have happened, basically. And it was about a month and a half of recovery. And in that time, I had a lot of time to think. And at the time, I was working for Unilever. And before that, the entire trajectory of my life was made You know, you go to school, you get good grades, you get a degree, you do what your parents guided you towards, and all of it. Honestly, if I didn't have that grounding, I wouldn't be who I am today. But in that, I also got caught up in, you know, a big party animal in between all of that, losing my way and getting into a space and a state of mind that probably wasn't going to be conducive to the direction that I probably was meant to be going on this earth. So after that month, I then decided I resigned from corporate. And initially it was, I just don't want to be in corporate. And then I sort of decided, okay, let me go try something else. And I went from FMCG to retail. So basically got a new badge in a new corporate. But when I went to TFG, which is, yeah, when I went to TFG, which is the Foschini Group, it's the largest retailer in South Africa, we started a brand called Sports Scene, which was amazing because it didn't even exist. We had to create this brand. It's now the #1 sport and leisure brand in South Africa. And we created this brand from scratch. And what I realized is I love creating things from scratch. I love the inception. I love the concept. I love bringing people together to make it happen. And that's actually, now when I look back on that moment, that's my talent. My talent is bringing a whole lot of people together from various parts. I mean, if you look at a brand like that, you've got to bring the brand team, the marketing team, the footwear team, the apparel team, the advertising team, the brands. You know, it's a big movement to create. What's quite interesting is because I loved it so much and I get very caught in these things and I give everything, I ended up getting psoriasis and a very heavy stress reaction to this love for what I love.
I know that one.
So you love something, you put all your energy in it, you think you making it happen, but actually you're also burning yourself out. So I had a long chat with my dad. He was like, really, you like giving up yourself for somebody else? And you know, and my dad's an entrepreneur. And so I just jumped out of corporate completely and I decided I'm starting my own business. And I took a piece of the marketing world and the fashion world and I created something around fashion and marketing, which was the first time that you saw that promoters would wear outfits that were geared towards the brand, that were created for the brand. So Dove would have beautiful white outfits as opposed to, I don't know if you remember back in the day, promotion with t-shirts and then a little logo.
Yes.
And I created this brand called Fashion Channel. Yeah, I created a brand called Fashion Channel, which was using fashion as a statement for marketing. So creating entire like collections for brands like Omo and Dove and all of that. And by the time, you know, that about 8 years I was in that and sold it. And it was another concept that came out of nowhere. It was like, oh, taking this and taking that and making that happen. And that's been something I think has been a big catalyst in my life going forward is like, that conceptual thinking of like, let's make something happen. Let's make it as big as we can. And let's see what's possible where nothing even existed. And I think the catalyst for that was that initial accident of saying, what is the experiment with life? It can't be just working for someone else. It can't just be having this noose of a salary on the 25th every single month.
This path that is laid out very clearly, you know, with tick boxes along it.
Definitely.
You know,
So definitely a catalyst in my life. Yes.
Yeah. We share a lot of things in common. Now we know psoriasis as well. Also a car accident, which happened to me a few years after I was here in South Africa.
Wow.
My tires blew at night on the N2 and I took two wheels off an 18-wheeler truck.
Oh my
And
gosh.
people still don't believe, and I walked out. Same kind of thing, you know, some minor stuff.
Yeah.
I was a tougher nut to crack. I've had a number of it took me a while to come around, or at least to come all the, you know, I'm older than you. Maybe I don't do that again. Stay awake. But it was the roomie, don't go back to sleep. But this, you know, the latest, this poisoning a few years ago, and having all that time to sit, you know, and think, and also being told that I shouldn't have lived from, you know, the doctors and the ICU. We don't really know what to do with you. No one's ever survived anything like this. We're
Yeah.
going to try what we think might work. Yay. Um, and it's a reckoning too, I think. It's a reckoning point. Okay, if I made it through this, then there's got to be some really good reason. And you don't want to waste that. But like you, my background was in commercial real estate. So this conjuring, this putting together and creating something that wasn't there before, and the teams, and I get all that. And it's kind of magic. It's a kind of, it literally is conjuring things out of seemingly thin air. But your last point, that's what's really hitting me these days. And that's, I think, part of my calling for Odyssey. Part of the purpose of this next leg of our journey, I'm calling it the Odyssey Circle, not just the print magazine, but online and social media, is intuitively what's been coming to me is as the human race, traditionally, and in different cultures it looks different, but there's a thick thread running through it of looking at constantly at the past, looking at what went wrong, and often using it for fear mongering. History books, our whole education system, a lot of our political systems, the way kids are taught, and to some extent our religions, too, those structures are about look at history, look what's happened. We don't want that to happen. And what's been coming really strongly is, what if we took, as you and I have done based on these events in our lives, what if we took all that energy, rather than putting it on what we don't want, truly, even though we keep repeating it, it's not what we want, and we put it on what we do want, what we want to see in the world, what we envision. And to me, that's what you did with this summit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So I think the catalyst was going to a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat and following his work.
That's part of it. All right.
And that I've been following for a long time, probably about 7 years. And I got into it through his books and Rewired, and I was fascinated with the thought that if you want a life that's better than the one you have, why don't you create it?
Exactly.
Because you are a creator. And that thought has always fascinated me, because I've always been somebody who could think of something and then the next thing it's there, and people always said, yeah, like manifestation, I don't think I knew the word before. I mean, now it's obviously very mainstream, and you're thinking about something.
I mean, I think it's often like, take vision boards. People do vision boards and they put very, very specific things on them.
Yeah.
And limits you, really, versus if you focus maybe on how you want to feel, or what, like a lot of blue open sky, you want open possibilities. If it's more metaphorical, I think
Totally.
manifesting can be used in a controlling way, which is a fear-based way. But you, ma'am, you know how to do it the other way. And Joe Dispenza,
I don't know
let's
if I
point
know it
out,
as yet. I don't know if I know it as yet. I feel like I know it. When you're in it and you're doing it and you're like, wow, okay, this is actually better than I thought. I think there's
that
magic there.
that's working intuitively. So people ask me about this a lot. Let me point this out. You're a great example of this.
Yeah.
If you come, let's be frank, you come from a culture that is very brain-based and has very high expectations in terms of education and schooling and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And also some incredible, incredible wisdom traditions too, underneath all of that. Some of the oldest and most profound wisdom on this earth. So you have it innately. If you stopped and thought about it too much, I don't know that it would go as well. And that's part of the reason I was fascinated with the summit, because it was literally not put together by the books. You did something, it was original, it was fresh, it was authentic, to use another overused word. Joe Dispenza, like us, for people who don't know his story, also had a huge, it was hit, it was a bad car accident, yeah, and broke his spine. And he decided not to, I'm paraphrasing his story, but it's all over YouTube if you want to hear it properly. he decided not to go the medical route, not to go surgery. He decided to heal it differently, as I have over years with cancer and with other things along the way. And that somehow teaches you that, you know, if allopathic medicine is more a thinking science, the ways that he's chosen to heal, and that I have, and I think you have, those are in a different realm. Does that make
Yep.
sense? I'm trying to put words on something that's really hard to grasp. But
He
I
actually
want to
very much,
underscore it's an
he was,
ability you have, and you're allowing it. The big thing is you allow it.
he was very much into yoga for a long
Mhm,
time.
mhm.
And he practiced yoga 3 hours a day, every day,
That's serious.
before he had the accident. And he was a chiropractor. So he had ancient wisdom and science.
Yes.
And when you go to his workshop, he talks about this book that he read called The Autobiography of a Yogi.
Huh?
And I mean, I've got about four on my shelf. I'd gift it to people all the time. It's the one book you must read every single year. And what they tell you in there is how you know, through meditation, you can change your entire body. You can do things that are not humanly possible when we are in 3D. But when you go inside, there's so many of these changes that can happen. And he put together all those different pieces of the puzzle, and he said to consciousness, if you allow me to be healed,
Mhm.
I will spend my life teaching people this. That was his, he made a bargain, and said, this is what I'm going to do. And to be true, he's doing it, and he's showing you how to do it, and he's explaining it now through science. So that's the part that actually grabs a lot of people. The number of doctors that were at the second workshop that we went to was astounding.
I saw.
So the fact that that community is coming across, going, there's something different. Mind you, there were 65 doctors at Mind Matters as well. So people are realizing the answers are not always in traditional medicine. There has to be a combination of the two. And just to
Exactly.
be open to it is already something major. And in my family, I have a lot of doctors. My uncle is 83, and he said to me, nowadays I prescribe the sun and the air, and for you to go out and basically, ground your feet, deep
Illness.
breathing, stillness. That's what I'm prescribing before I tell you take a tablet. So that community is coming around to what we are talking about here.
It really is coming back to the ancient, isn't it? You know, the very ancient. All of my friends who were in medicine, a lot of them, I was around when they went through medical school with them, and, you know, watched them go through that process. Most of them are finding other ways. You know, it's limited. Look, if I break my leg, you know, badly, I want a good surgeon. You know, there are things that allopathic medicine works very well for, but it's that same thing of doing things. How can there only be one way? How can I, you know, as a person who is about as white as you can get, I don't understand colonialist thinking. How can one group of people, we're in the very small minority, so it's probably out of fear, you know, decide that their way is the best way, or one religious path, or one way of schooling, you know? Um, so yeah, all right, that's all wonderful. We could go on about this for a long, long time. But so you worked with Joe Dispenza, and that was your catalyst for doing this.
Well, I was in a meditation in the first workshop in June last year, and he did this meditation, and one of the things that he said was make your mind matter, you know. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a really catchy thing.
I have to stop you just in June, and My Matter Summit was in September of the same.
No, 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 June the year before. June the
Okay,
year before.
all right. I mean, you're good, but man, yeah.
Yeah. No, June the year before. No,
Okay,
I wish I had more time.
all right, go ahead, but a little more than a year, still 15 months. Okay.
It was actually I didn't conceptualize it then, it was in my mind. So I think it was actually 9 months to making it happen. But the day that I thought make your mind matter, he said that, and he said anything you can think, as long as it has the right frequency, it has a way of working in this realm that you're in, working in the quantum realm. And since then, the number of synchronicities that had happened to bring me to that idea is astounding. I mean, I don't know if you were in the room when I was telling the story, but Kevin Bailey from the Dream Fuel team, they basically coach with visualization and breath work, which is a very unusual way of bringing neuroscience into the practice of visualization.
And the
And
way to use those two tools is unique. I must say that I work with them as well, and it's a
yes,
different approach. Yeah.
sorry. And one of the things that was amazing was how I ended up in the group with them. Was one day it showed up in my calendar, CEO breathwork for startups. Clicked on it. Ended up at 6:30 on a Thursday, they were having this thing. And then I go to this workshop, and then, he said, I reached out to him. I said, I don't know how I found you, because you only have Americans on your list because of the time, And he said, I don't even know how you got this. I was like, yeah, I know. And then I went to one of them and I said, oh my gosh, what you guys are doing is amazing. And we just started talking. And then he said, I'd love to see how we can explore to make this something that could spread further than the US. And then I invited him to come to Mind Matters, and I said, I want to open with you. And he said, are you sure? I said, yes, because I think when the mind is clear and it's primed, you take in information a lot better. And I had actually done that garden exercise with him. And that's how I knew what it does. So I did it before a big meeting. I planned and I said, everybody needs to know about this. And my whole thing is, I'm so grateful for my life and everything that I have, that I just want to share it and I want to give it and I want everybody to be exposed to it. And fundamentally, that's what I wanted to do with someone like Kevin, who comes from the US. And I thought, how am I going to get this guy here? And he was like, don't worry, I'll sort my own ticket out. I want to be in Africa. And that's how he came. It's amazing.
Standing around on Friday talking, obviously I'm originally from the US, and I lived in Chicago for 22 years. He's from Chicago.
Okay.
So, and we spent quite a bit of time together on Friday. And hearing his accent, I mean, that is as American as you can get.
Totally.
And having
Totally.
been here for 10 years, I was floored. But he is the most humble. He's very, very tall. I'm tall. He's very, very tall.
Yeah.
And just sort of strides in. And he was on Friday, he wasn't quite sure how he got there either. And I love that. I love that you went with that. And just to clarify for people listening, because they weren't there. So the summit started in the convention center in a very typical kind of setting. We were asked to sit one seat apart from each other, which was very, and some people didn't get the memo, so they had to move, and people were a little disgruntled. And it all started with a lovely interview that the MC did with three women, one of whom is a Lyra, well beloved singer here, who went through her own big health crisis a few years ago, and people were in tears and on their feet, and then we all calmed down, and then here comes Kevin the cowboy. Hi, I'm in Africa. was it was such an unexpected thing, and he explained that we were sitting apart from each other so that we could enjoy the breath work without being self-conscious or whatever. And then we did this guided visualization combined with breath work in a way I'm qualified, whatever, to do both things, and have for a long time. But I had never seen it used together like that. And I'd certainly never been in an auditorium with several hundred people doing it. And that was a stroke of genius on your part. And again, not the normal path. I've never had it happen quite that way, but you trusted that people could handle it. I think we often put out, particularly this was, I mean, you were playing on a big stage. You didn't start small. This was, and you have to be willing to fail spectacularally to try something.
Believe me, that was self-doubt was there all along.
I'm
Will
not sure
people go with
talk
this?
about, failing, all of the, I have a lot on failing, and to remind me that you have to be willing to fail.
Yeah.
And you didn't. You absolutely flew. But to start off something like this with a number of more scientifically, academically minded people, I was probably very far on the other side within this crowd. It changed the energy of the space, which sounds simple, but it's much more profound than that. And it began that opening up. That was when the boxes were open and the plastic part was pulled out. You know? And then everything that came after that, there was a connectivity within the group. There was a space that was being held. There was a curiosity. There was a what's next. So brava, because that was off the beaten path.
I thought about that many times. I was like, first of all, I'm inviting this guy over to South Africa, which he's never been to in his whole life.
I'm going to interview Kevin, so people will be able to find Kevin Bailey with Dream Fuel. We will also have a conversation with him, so you'll get to know Kevin yourselves. Go ahead.
And amazing that he then said, I want to tell you something. I believe that he was doing some meditations on his side, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why did you say yes to the invite in the end? That was our last conversation. And he said, because I believe that you are put here to heal the world and I want to join you.
Exactly.
And that was how the whole thing happened. And he just got on a plane and trust and surrender. And, you know, the guy has 4 kids. Little kids. And his wife had to take care of the kids. And but he knew that there was some catalyst. And he actually dropped me a message yesterday. I reached out for something and he just said to me, wow, South Africa is becoming a thing. The number of people reaching out is amazing. So, you know, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's on the other side of the world until somebody brings you there. The rest of the people in the audience didn't know that that exists. And there's a combination of things that you put together. And actually, that's how I designed the immersive days the next day, was a combination of things to give people the experience of the day before, rooted in what's known as the human growth code.
How to embody it, how to experience it.
How to embody what you learned the day before. Yeah.
I'm running out of superlatives, but trust me. So that all worked absolutely beautifully, and I definitely want to, though there will be an article posted on the website, and then in our first issue, which is our first print issue, is going to be centered around creativity. So I hope that we'll talk more about that angle and maybe write something on that angle. I often, you know, people so often will say, obviously, like, I'm an artist, I am a writer, a photographer, all of that. Creativity is how I healed personally. I made my own deal at a critical point in my life with, if I was going to stay, I wasn't going to wear masks any longer, and I was going to take care of myself, which I didn't know how to do when I was in my late 30s. Not truly. And when people say, oh, I'm not creative, they mean I don't paint at an easel. They mean I don't get on a potter's wheel. You know, I don't write books. And yet human beings are innately creative. I mean, that is consciousness expressed, really. And to me, this whole summit, you're like a prime example of that, because you created this out of thin air with people who had never been to South Africa or Africa. I did have to explain to them about, you know, South Africa and all of that. I got that in early. And sparked so many people then to go out and create these things. And this is when I say that our missions are connected or similar or in the same vein, this is exactly what I mean, because that is exactly what Odyssey is here to do, particularly as we move forward. I couldn't find, this is important to me to start with this conversation with you, because I can't find a better example.
That's a wonderful compliment. You know, funnily, you talk about Kevin coming out from the US, but Dr. Andrea Vaneker came out from Canada. She'd never been to South Africa before. Mo Goddard had never been to Cape Town before. These
and
are
loved it.
well-to-know people who've never been to South Africa, by the way. Tara's been to South Africa. I mean, Christa, well, he used to live in South Africa, but has also come out. So, the wonderful
Half the people you highlighted. Yeah, fully half.
the fact that they wanted to be a part of this was mind-blowing. When I shared with them the vision for transformation and how we're going to bring it with data and emotion and science and psychology and neuroscience, and it's all the different facets, because I don't think there's one way to change someone's mind. People have to go through that journey for themselves, meet you where you're at, and then be transformed.
And they have to allow it. They have to be willing to.
And that was actually one of my biggest concerns at the beginning was, are people going to go with the breath work? Are people going to enjoy a conversation with somebody who's
there,
yeah, or are they going to be, yeah. I mean, I just had to believe that the world is awake, and the language I was using on my website was what was going to push them into understanding what was coming. And for those who wrote things on Instagram like, oh, I don't get what you're doing for 6,500 Rand or whatever, I was like, okay, you know what? That's not my tribe.
No, and you have to be willing. That's like being willing to fail.
Yes.
I probably talked about this, I'm not sure, in other conversations, but with Odyssey, I'm the 5th editor in almost 50 years. It's a huge legacy and the founder just died days after she found out was taking over. And so many, she was very, Jill, you would have loved Jill, big on synchronicities and all of that kind of thing. And and I'm making a lot of changes. And I've got the damn American accent still after 10 years. And, I can just hear, oh, the American's coming in and she's changing her. It's a fear-based response, and people will respond that way. And I can't care. So I go back to something I trained with Martha Beck as a life coach, many years ago. And she talked about something that has stuck with me forever. That we put out a tray to feed birds, and we put the bird food on the tray and we freely offer it. We do not chase down each bird with the correct size seed, the sunflowers, the grosbeaks and things. We just don't do that.
Yeah.
And that has brought me a lot of comfort. And you did the same thing. We can only put out there what we feel called to put out there. And people will take what they can of it and they will interpret it through their own lenses.
Completely.
But yet, if we worry about what people are going to think and not wanting to scare them or whatever, I have, full certifications in people pleasing and perfectionism, trust me. In recovery from for many years still. Then we don't do it. Then we don't create. Then we don't put it out. And then everything looks the same. And then we end up with the world in the mess that it's in right now.
And then no one's willing to also step forward and do something different, because you want
to create an environment that won't.
It doesn't create anything new.
Yeah.
What is quite interesting? Another thing that I did that a few people only in the end got it was I did put out an agenda. So the agenda was, and I actually took this cue from Dr. Joe, right? So when he puts out the workshop and you're going for the first time, so imagine you're going for 5 days or 7 days to this retreat.
Yeah, he does long.
Yeah, you want to know what's happening. So all he puts out,
his work is a commitment.
Yeah. So he puts on the agenda is 5 a.m. meditation or 6 a.m. meditation, break, 7 a.m. meditation, break. Right. Yeah, this is all you get. And you're like, what am I doing? Because you imagine you going all the way, you paying.
I could stay home and do
the ticket. Yeah, you don't know what you're doing. Food will be at this time, sleep, that's it. And then when you get there, your mind is completely blown. Like you are blown. And you know what it is? It's the element of surprise. Be open to being surprised. And what everybody had said to me is, thank you for not giving us an agenda, because when you see big names, you think that those are going to be.
Wanted one. I want to be very clear. Even I kind of wondered a little bit. I didn't push, but
I know everybody, because that's human nature. That's our behavior. Everybody asked. My team was getting shat on from a dizzy height. can't believe you're not letting us know when Tara's speaking.
What is the path? Yeah, and even that day, well, I hope Tara's going to sign, and I hope she's going to talk before 3 o'clock, and I hope there was a great deal. That's the one thing I really picked up on just sitting in the crowd was sort of trepidation because we didn't know. I loved it because
Yeah.
one of my favorite sayings is life will surprise you if you let it. So to me and for my daughter, it was delightful. But for most, there was a lot of murmuring about that, even that day.
Totally. Until they got to the end and everyone was like, oh, thank God. I came in the morning and I didn't know Lira was going to perform. I
Yeah.
didn't know how good
So
because
many
you know what people do, hey, Krista? If they see a big name speaker and they see a South African speaker, they'll go for the big name. But I can tell you that after we had this panel, people's minds were blown. Or they would see corporate speakers and go, oh, I don't want to hear about whatever. But actually, Paul, Miller, and Maria and Chris blew people out the water with the information that they had. So
it made
it
me
was
feel
that.
proud to be South African. Like
Exactly.
this is a big as someone who was called to be in South Africa and I came for a month, came back a month later and stayed. And believe me, everyone in the US thought I was out of my mind. There was talk about did I need to be checked out,
Yeah.
psychologically. Um, but for me, it was a very, very strong calling. And I could not love this place or see all the innate gifts that are here more clearly. But um, not so many South Africans feel the same way that I do.
We always think of ourselves as the underdog.
The loud ones are the ones who complain and leave and all of that, and a lot of it can be really when I first was coming and I put something on Facebook about it, the things I got in comments from expats, I didn't know. I had to put all my posts to private or friends or whatever, because it was just they were sending me videos of nuns being set on fire and and I mean things that I was aware of. Thank you very much. It wasn't like I came here with my eyes all full of glitter. um so I think that this is a really important point because the summit was an amazing showcase, and I felt so not just proud, but like, oh, okay, it's not just me who sees, I felt like I wasn't alone in seeing all of this. And Odyssey, that's what these conversations about. I want the world to see what South Africa truly is, because there's no in the education system. People have very strange ideas about what South Africa is and isn't. Um, so you have created this beautiful frame, to put the artwork that is South Africa in. And I don't, I think that can't go, unmentioned. It's really important. I agree. Kevin has said the same thing to me about, in his organization, like we're getting a lot of connection, and more as things go wrong in these first world countries that were put on a pedestal, all of a sudden people are looking at alternative lifestyles. I get a lot of questions now from people who thought I was dead wrong to come here. Well, how did that work exactly? um, Strange. So how um, how do you plan to continue? Well, what are your thoughts about moving forward, first of all, with the summit? I
Yeah.
know that you are planning one for next year. I don't. I think there are those of us who will push you anytime you need
I know. That's
help.
all that's been happening. Literally, I have a meeting with all three partners tomorrow.
Good.
Uh, and all of them were like, what's next? What's coming? Can I get involved? Yeah, I do have a plan for next year. I mean, I think it's going to be longer, probably 3 days, because there was just too much information. When it was over, I think at 4:30, people were like, oh my gosh, is it over? Is there not? I'm so glad I'm coming back tomorrow, And then when that was over, people were like, oh no, it's finished. Um, so I think 3 days, potentially a lot more mini events and more immersive experiences, because a lot of people that didn't go on the immersive experiences, there were only like 250 seats available on that, because we needed to limit the numbers because the venues, people were like, I would have loved to learn how to tango. I would have loved to know what that did with leadership. I would have loved to go into an ice plunge and been coached through it. What was amazing on the day too was how people who never thought they could do certain things push themselves because of the mindset training that we gave everybody in those moments. So I think where I want to see it going is a lot more action-based next year, a lot more transformational, immersive.
Great. It will help people integrate, I think, as they go.
Yeah. So I got to think about how to do that more. Building the experience design, that's for me the catalyst to what people are feeling. What's going to give us that emotion? What's going to give us the high of Lira? What's going to give us the moment where Mo comes in and scares the living daylights out of you, to then put everything right to say, you have it in you to be unstressable in these times. You've got to take the onus upon you. And I think the clear message was transformation only can come from you. We can give you the tools, we can show you the
Yes.
way, but you do the work.
And it's deep inside of all of us. And it's, again, it's the allowing. Can you allow it to come out? And by showing people, like, I was in the tango and breathwork group on Friday, the second day. And, there was a lot of milling about in the beginning. And, people asking me, like, for some reason I would know, what do you think tango and breathwork? Why are we
With
tango?
anything.
Do you have any idea? And to, again, the element of surprise, and again, by showing people how you bring your voice, your authenticity, your imagination, your creativity, how you bring it forward in the most unusual ways, then opens up this whole thing in between now, their normal lives and that. Do you need to tango every day? No. Can you use everything you learned in that day? Yes. Please do.
I mean, someone wrote a brilliant post afterwards. I don't know if you saw it. There were two posts, but this one was just stood out. And she said, I never knew what tango taught me about leadership. And in that moment, she realized what we were trying to do, because remember that a lot of it was the new frontier of leadership is about human growth. So
Yes.
how do you embody that experience through a mindful practice that gives you that was, the brief I had in my mind. And when I heard about Ina, I mean, she comes from the Russian ballet and she's like world class, right?
Yeah.
The other thing was we had world class coaches. Every single coach was on top of their game, best in world type of thing. And it was you learning from the best at every moment, from the summit all the way. I mean, Tatiana Smith, the most decorated Olympian, Lira, the number one most platinum singer in South Africa. You weren't learning from people who were average. You were learning from the world's best, whether they were South African or global or coaches or all of that. So you felt as though you were receiving this information and it was possible that you could do it,
And for being so transparent, this was really key. They were being so transparent about their own humanity that you realize that they're really no different than you.
Oh,
This
that was
was such a
exactly what I wanted
showcase
to know. Yeah.
for the similarities over the differences. And I'm going to paraphrase Mo, and you might be able to quote him more directly. But he talked a lot. The scaring the bejesus out of everyone part had to do with AI. And he spoke a lot about that. And, he is, for, if you don't know who he is, he's a brilliant, brilliant mind, and was able to keep up with AI, in terms of doing mathematics until last year or something. And he can't anymore. And he said, we can't out intelligize, if that's the word, AI, but we can and always will be able to out human it.
Yes.
And that to me was the real call to arms for the whole thing. And the wake up call, I hope, that a lot of people heard, and maybe the reassurance that people needed. Because look, these are rapidly shifting, changing times. I told you my life right now is it's like I'm going down a river and it's moving rapidly, and I'm trying to enjoy it and just make sure that don't hit my head on the branches. And AI is a hell of a branch. It's got a lot of branches. It's everywhere. That to me was what I think really hit home with people. Was it? they were, everyone was so genuine and so accessible and so let themselves be vulnerable and visible and conversational. Like this is what I hope these conversations are. We're just, no one's on a pedestal here. None of us are better than another. And yet we can inspire the heck out of each other, and we can encourage each other, and we can create spaces where everyone can grow.
I think that was the fundamental message as well, is that you have it in you to have greatness too.
Yes. Everyone.
Everybody. And
You,
sometimes you're just luckier than others. And you get famous and rich because people all aspire to that. But that's not the mission. The
and
mission
it's
is to,
like,
yeah,
that
but
Buddhist
the mission
thing,
is to do
good or
what you
bad,
were to do.
yeah, exactly.
You know, the mission
Perceive.
is to align yourself. Yeah, receive your mission and carry it out. Like sometimes I think people do hear the little voice, but they don't follow it because the paycheck is more important, or having the status of a position or a title is more important than doing the work. I can tell you there were times when Mind Matters almost broke me in the last couple of months.
And I appreciate you saying that. I can imagine. It must have been a hugely, I always liken these things to childbirth. There's this period called transition where I was just sure when I gave birth to my daughter that I was going to explode into a million pieces. I just kept telling everyone very random, nice knowing you. I am now going to explode into a million pieces. And birthing something like this can also feel that way, the same thing.
No, definitely. And I think people need to realize that taking something on like this, it's not easy just because you're in flow and you know about it and all of that. You still have to have, mind my French, but the balls to go
Oh,
after it, even when the world seems like it's taking it away from you. And
I
there were
used
many.
that with someone yesterday. They said, "Are you going to wade into Odyssey and just make changes gradually?" And I said, "No, balls to the wall, all the way,
Yeah.
because it's time." It is. I feel that so strongly. I mean, the work that I do with people, in essence, um, is teaching people to live from their intuition, or supporting them, guiding them, mentoring them, and living intuitively versus with the brain, intellectually. But those neural pathways, they are cut deep. I am 64 years old. I have been doing this work in my own life and with others for a very long time now. And I still, things like, don't stick out, you know, be careful what you say. Don't, you don't want to scare people, be a good girl. All the things that, young girls are, be sweet, the Southern American thing, be sweet. Um, and living in Zulu society, which really enforces a lot of those things again, as well as ancient wisdom, the juxtaposition between the two. um I think it's really important that we make it clear that all of that doesn't disappear.
No, it doesn't.
We just do
Self-doubt.
it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, self-doubt when you're doing something like this, it creeps in every. Are people going to attend? Are people going to buy tickets for 6,500 Rand?
Yeah.
Are people going to actually put money? The questions that go on in your mind. And then like 688 people show up and you're like, wow, okay.
And loved it.
I
And
love it.
as far as I can tell, 99% loved it.
Yeah.
That's not even the right word. They were changed by it. They allowed themselves to be metamorphosized by this incredible space that you created. This will always be one of my favorite experiences.
Oh, thanks, Christa.
I've
I'm
had
so
a
glad
lot of
out and I'm glad that you were part of it. And I somehow see us probably being part of the journey going forward.
them,
But
I'm sure.
yeah, and it's
Figure
quite
it out.
interesting. But I did take my first ad in Odyssey for Mind Matters, the back cover of the last issue before you were there. But it was a magazine cover that we had done to launch that Mind Matters was going to be in South Africa.
So it's already begun.
It's
Please
already begun.
know that there is a very willing chairperson to cheer you all on through anything and everything. People need content right here.
I
And
appreciate that.
let's continue the conversation.
Thank you
We
so much.
will be, people will obviously put, at least on the YouTube version of this, all of your links and things. And we should probably include some of the people we've mentioned as well. And then just keep watching for more. I'm excited to witness the birth of all of this. Thank you. And thank you so much at this point, when it hasn't even been a month, for joining us here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Cheers. Bye.